Now our next topic is slutsky equation, and this comes after the indirect utility function. Now this equation plays a central role in analyzing the properties of demand function. If we are able to understand this equation, then it will help us to analyze the demand functions. Its derivation is as follows. First, what we will do is that we will take the expenditure as a constraint, okay? The expenditures, that is capital M, which is the money income of the consumer, that is taken as the constraint. So therefore, we start this slutsky equation with taking the expenditures as the constraint. What happens next is it is resulting from the expenditure minimization problem. Why? Because consumer has to minimize its expenditures in order to maximize its utility. Therefore, the solution we got when we started the problem of expenditure minimization and of course the utility maximization, we got a bundle which was referred to as xi star. So therefore, we also started the Marshallian demand function and Hicksian demand function. Now what we will do is that we will set a function where m is equal to mpu, okay? M is equal to mpu. And we have hi, that is the Hicksian demand function, okay? This is Marshallian demand function. Now we have this m represents the Marshallian demand function, okay? Now we have the next one is our Hicksian demand function, which is hi into pu, okay? So therefore, if we will extend or expand this function, what we will get over here is, now when we expand this particular function, that is the Hicksian demand function, it will become equal to di into p, okay, m, and what we will have over here is p comma u. So therefore, let us name this as according to your book, let us name this as, okay, wait. So now let's name this equation as B18. I'm naming these equations as according to your book, the book of travel rate and Reese, one of the best microeconomics books for microeconomic analysis. So therefore, now what happens over here is that we will put the values of this equation into the given function, and therefore it will become, and then we will take the partial derivative of hi with reference to pi. Again, we are taking the partial derivative of Hicksian demand function with reference to the pi. It will give us the particular, okay. So now therefore curly hi upon curly pi, curly hi divided by curly pi is equal to curly di divided by curly pj, because there's not only the price of good I, rather there is the price of good j as well, plus curly di, okay, divided by curly m into curly m upon curly pj. So therefore, let us name this as equation number B.19. Okay, it's B.19. So using Shepard's lemma and rearranging, what we do is that we will use Shepard's lemma and then rearrange this particular equation, which we have named as B19. Okay. Now we will get curly di by rearranging it and by of course using the Shepard's lemma. What we will get is that, okay, wait. we'll get a slutsky equation where curly d I upon curly pj, curly di upon curly pj, okay, this is equal to curly hi upon curly pj, okay, curly hi upon curly pj, minus x di upon curly m. This is x di upon curly m. Clear? Now this is B20. B20. Now taking I is equal to j, that is let I is equal to j. We consider the effects of price change on its own demand. Therefore, B20 shows the slope of the Marshallian demand function is sum of substitution effect, that is curly I, curly hi upon curly pi, okay, which is the slope of the Hicksian compensated demand curve, and income effect, that is xi into di upon curly m. So therefore, B20 again, with I is equal to j, establishes if a good is normal so that curly di upon curly m. If this curly di upon curly m is greater than 0, then the slope of the Marshallian demand curve is negative. If the good is inferior, then curly di upon curly m, okay, what happens over here is that if curly di upon curly m is less than or equal to 0, if it is less than or equal to 0, slope is negative, positive, or 0 depending on the relative sizes of the absolute value. So therefore, this is all about the Slutsky equation, and which one is basically the Slutsky equation in our complete analysis is this one. This one is the Slutsky equation where curly di upon curly pj is equal to curly hi upon curly pj minus xdi upon curly m. So after studying the Slutsky equation, we move on towards the properties of demand function, which are basically studied through this very same topic, and it makes it more easily understandable through this topic. Okay, these are the few properties of demand functions. The first one is Hicksian demand functions are not directly observable since they depend on the consumer's utility as well as prices. Here on comes over here, okay? Hicksian demand functions are not directly observable because they depend on the consumer's utility and prices. Marshallian demand functions can be estimated from information on purchases, prices, and money incomes. Some of the main properties are Marshallian demand functions are homogeneous of degree 0 in the prices and money incomes. Marshallian demand functions satisfy the adding up property. Now let me write the adding up property over here. That is summation pi xi star is equal to n. This property is satisfied by the Marshallian demand function, that is summation pi xi star is equal to n. Now the last property, the third property is the Hicksian demand derivatives are symmetric. When we talk about the Hicksian demand properties, we say that they are symmetric. The derivatives are symmetric. That is, suppose we have curly h I divided by curly pj, okay, is equal to curly hj upon curly pi. Got it? By symmetric, we mean if we take the derivative of curly hi upon curly pj or curly hj upon curly pi, they are same. Therefore, they are symmetric. And therefore, we can also say that the curly dj divided by curly Tj divided by curly Ti. Okay, curly Pi plus this we have started just right before this topic in this Slutsky equation plus xi into curly Tj upon curly n. Curly Tj upon curly n. So therefore, this is the last property, and it is related to the Hicksian property, Hicksian demand function. Now, the topics of microeconomic analysis have completed over here. So after this, we will move towards a new chapter. The chapter of consumption has finished over here. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can ask me anytime. I'll be available.